In a time of darkness, when fear ruled the galaxy, heroes will rise, destinies will collide.
Who is that king?
And a rebellion will ignite.
Get ready.
Now!
Who are you guys?
We're a team.
What part of Blast Them did you not understand?
Troopers, focus your fire on the Jedi.
Star Wars Rebels. Join the rebellion. Premieres this fall on Disney XD.
Inquisitor, I have encountered a rebel cell.
You did well to call.
Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to Geek Fest Rants. My name is Carlos Perone, and joining me today I have James here. Say hi, James.
Hello, hello.
We are not exactly in James's bunker today. We're in more of his presentation
The
room.
annex.
It's the lobby that leads to the bunker, if you will. As usual, or as most times, when I get together with James, the topic of Star Wars always seems to come up. And if anybody listening has access to the internet, like most of us do, you know that there's a lot of Star Wars rumblings going around. The next film is in full production mode right now. The next animated television show is almost ready to debut in a few months. So we have a lot of Star Wars information and rumors and just whatever little bits and pieces they're trickling out to us nowadays here to talk about. That's what we're going to be handling today. Any new Star Wars-y rumors. Now, granted, keep in mind, as usual, by the time this show goes on the air, they might be a whole slew of new ones, and I might have to add them, at the last minute as a postscript to this episode. Because once the Star Wars machine starts rolling, it just keeps chugging along. James, why don't we start with what probably we're going to see first, and that is Rebels. What do we know about Rebels so far? And tell me how you feel about them, because I know sometimes you kind of change your mind on how things go.
Well, I hate using Star Wars cliches like everybody else does, but I do have a bad feeling about this.
Oh, come on. Be an optimist for once.
It looks nice. This show, Rebels, is Disney's version of an animated Star Wars.
Of Clone Wars, I guess.
It's their version post-Clone Wars.
Because you could say Lucas's version of that animated Star Wars is Clone Wars.
Okay.
This is going to be Disney's version.
This is Disney's version of the Star Wars universe pre A New Hope, which is the first movie we all saw and loved.
And post-Sith, right.
And I just have a feeling, based on what I see, they've added, we may have talked about this and other people may have talked about it, they seem to be putting characters in that fit a certain scope that they want to fill. There's the sassy, free-spirited gal. There's the kids will love the cute little version of the R2 unit, looking like an orange R5-D4.
Yeah.
The boys will dig the sidekick creature who is actually what we believe is based on a concept character of Chewbacca.
Correct.
From the old
McQuarrie
artwork.
paintings, yeah.
And then there's some other characters. I guess the bad guy kind of has a Grand Admiral Thrawn feel to him. He's got this like demonic kind of look.
A little Vader-y vibe going.
The funny thing about Star Wars is it didn't have a lot of aliens in leadership positions. I find it a little odd that this guy is suddenly this Grand Admiral or whatever his character's going to be called.
In the movies themselves, yes, you're absolutely right.
It just didn't feel right.
It didn't look right. In the written part of... Now, I'm not talking about EU here. I'm talking about... I don't want to open up this can of worms, but if you read like the novel for Star Wars, which I guess it's close, even though Alan Dean Foster wrote it under George Lucas's name, and some of the other movie tie-in novels, they do imply that the Empire is very human-centric.
Yeah,
it's somewhat anti-alien. I think they tried to. I mean, obviously, it's very Nazi vibe going around.
Yeah, exactly. It fit in the world of Star Wars. In the prequels, Palpatine had some alien sidekicks type people. He had people he could... Darth Maul was his apprentice. Mas Amata, I think was his name, was the big blue guy who was his like major domo.
Yeah, Masamita. But those guys were also, especially Masamita, he was more of the, I'm still the Chancellor.
Yes.
I'm not still a good guy,
and the
everybody.
vibe was once he became
I love
the
everyone.
Emperor... it became more
You're
I'm in
fired.
charge, and this inner circle of Grand Admirals or Moffs or Grand Moffs
The closest
are human
thing
versions.
you can
and the Rebel Alliance
Everybody else.
seem to be in like the big tent party.
And
how it fits
here's
in
the
our
thing.
society.
In Return of the Jedi, when you see the Emperor come to the Death Star with his advisors, they're all humans. All those guys in the funny hats.
Yeah, even though they had his inner circle, they had funny Pope hats.
These old-looking
they
guys,
were
but they're
humanish.
humanoid.
Yeah, we believe they're humans, just older, and But all the rebel worlds were people who have been oppressed because they are alien, because they are poor, because Empire wanted their technology or their
so in
spice.
a way, it's nothing new that's the direction they're going with the show.
But we got off on a tangent, I know. But that's what I'm saying.
Us?
This new bad guy, this new major bad guy, is alien.
He looks a little like that race of was it Utapau, from Sith, the guy with the gray face,
and even slightly like what Plagueis is, the Muns.
The Muns, yeah, but
he's not a Mun.
No, he's not a Mun, but he looks more like the Utapau guy.
So anyway, back to
if it is
my vibe,
Utapau, I don't remember.
Without getting more off the track that we have to. The ships we've seen, the toys we've seen, we've talked about slightly. It's a derivative of sorts of a Millennium Falcon style ship.
I love it.
Carillion. The other ships, there are TIE fighters present, whether they're the exact same
with
models
the
or
kind of curvy-ish wings of previous models.
There are other ships that looks like, the Rebels, I'm sure, are going to have a version of an X-Wing type
Phantom,
thing.
the Ghost, all those other
So that's all fine. I like that the Legos are putting that out. At first, I was turned off to them because I felt like it was another, like when Clone Wars came out, they put out the Twilight. They put out these ships nobody really knew. Get to the ships we want.
Actually, did they ever put out a Twilight?
Yeah, I have it.
Oh my God.
It was one of the first ones put out, yeah. So now I'm more receptive to the Lego versions of it because it seems like they're trying and they really made them look good and they're not too overly priced. There'll be toy versions of some of these characters. We've seen what appears to be a older or middle-aged Obi-Wan. That's weird because is he making an appearance or is he a shadowy character who we hear about but they made a figure of it because it'll give older fans
Let's mention this,
tie-in?
which we might have before. It almost looked like it was an accident or maybe it was leaked, but there was a display poster of upcoming figures on some separate event. I think it was a Disney related event, not the big Hasbro Toy Fairy type of events, but where all of a sudden there was an Obi-Wan. It's like, wait a minute, nobody said Obi-Wan was going to be in this series. What's going on? And I think through the grapevine and somebody
wasn't there
confirmed,
a teaser trailer type thing that there's like people were talking about like a second or two clip of an Obi-Wan looking that might have. It's hard to say what's going on because things come and go, and they
unless it was a mistake and they never will manufacture that fit. It's on the damn poster, so there you go.
And so it's probably in the episode somewhere, and I don't know how I feel about that. I liked that if you think about it, Obi-Wan goes into seclusion and nobody knows where he is again. But however, somehow Leia knew that she should go to Tatooine to find General Kenobi, which probably came from her stepfather, Senator Bail Organa.
Now, let's just talk a little bit about the look of the show, which because they've already released one or two little trailers here or there, or snippets.
It's good energy.
It resembles somewhat the Clone Wars style in terms of the cartoon look of it. However, I noticed that this was just the architecture and the faces, everything is a little more curved as opposed to the angular style of Clone Wars, where Clone Wars, if you remember, especially in the beginning, the first seasons, the jawline and the faces that were kind of squarish. Dooku looked like one of the Easter heads from Easter Island.
Exactly.
This show has very, very curvy looking characters, not like weird curves, but just more
sexy,
more realistic, I guess you can call them, but still within that CGI animated style that we're used to.
Don't you feel, though, what the people really wanted was, remember a test before Clone Wars came out that showed Luke and Han and things? It was either fan-made or it was an unofficial test showing the Star Wars characters we like in animated form.
No, I don't remember that.
It's out there.
Wow.
I'm sure if you look it up, you'll be
I'm
like,
gonna have to look it up.
It was kind of, no, this is not happening. Quickly,
okay.
They put it out. That's what the people want.
I remember an anime thing once people put out there.
There was something else. It was tests before Clone Wars. I don't remember. But that's what people wanted. And that would have been a better way to reintroduce to younger people the Star Wars universe of Luke Skywalker, with animated versions of them, say between Star Wars and Empire, or between Empire and Jedi if you needed to, or episodes kind of like they did with the Clone Wars, bouncing around in different periods.
Even the micro
that
series
eventually would fit in if you watched episode 4, episode 5, episode 6, then those would fit in with like, hey, yeah, when we fought the Gundark, and there was an episode of that, or there when, the Kessel Run, or these other things. You put those things in a little bit before, a little bit middle, a little bit after, so then when you get to episode 7, bingo, everybody loves it again.
Even the micro series before Clone Wars, the one that was done before Filoni, that was more traditional animation looking, but the style was also, again, very different, very
wasn't that
stylish.
More the Samurai Jack look, though?
Well, that was the guy who...
Tartovsky or something. I don't know how to say his name.
So it was very highly stylized, not only in the look, but in the way people moved and acted and basically moved around. It was high stylized. And I guess little by little, they're moving to
Any
more
idea
realistic.
what kind of music they're using?
Oh, Kiner again.
Okay, good. So he'll have a similar vibe, just...
Yes, and from what I've heard so far, he is hitting more John Williams cues than ever before.
Good.
With Clone Wars, we got little bits and pieces here or there. It seems to me like they're going to go a little heavier on the John Williams influence this time around because you're getting closer and closer to Star Wars, so it kind of makes sense.
Now, the last thing I'll say about this...
Kevin Kiner, I think his name is.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Who happens to also have done all the music for CSI Miami and Hell on Wheels. Talk about a guy who's done some...
quite a
talk about range. Well, you know what it is? He's very into, especially with Clone Wars, doing the classical style music, but using very modern instruments. There's a lot of good electric guitar. And,
I like
and
that.
while it is orchestral, it's also very super modern.
So the last thing I'll say on it at the moment is, at the beginning of Clone Wars, I had my doubts. I saw the movie in the theater. I did like it, but of course the Zero the Hutt made you cringe a little bit. So I
would die to get a Zero the Hutt figure.
I want him
that talks
a figure. I want him to have his own miniseries, a backstory, his whole how he.
I'm not kidding. I would if they put it out. I would buy it.
So Filoni was the guy. I didn't know what to make of him. I've grown to respect him because he made that universe his. Probably he even did a better job than George Lucas ever did because George would get pooped out after doing a movie and then want to just get out of it.
I'm done.
Filoni was always willing to stop for 2 seconds and talk to a fan or be excited about it. It seems to me, based even on your assessment.
Yeah, I met him a few times. And yeah, he's a great pitch man for whatever product he happens to be working on.
And if he really was the brains behind making that all work, I have recently rewatched Clone Wars in its entirety in the proper order that they put out, and it was a better show when you can watch it in its full, if you can jam it into in like a month or two, every episode.
In its native language of Klingon.
But, after they put out those final episodes with this, it really was sad now that it's gone. So I'm kind of hoping Rebels will surprise me, but, I'm in that in-between period, which leads us to why I'm also in that in-between period with what we're hearing out in the world.
Well, this brings us to episode 7. Who knows? Because they
Maybe
haven't
by
given us...
Comic-Con we'll find out.
The rumor is Comic-Con is probably, they'll unleash the new title. It kind of makes sense.
They've got time, but they want to start putting out
Right,
promotional
they have more
materials.
time than before. Originally, it was supposed to be a summer film.
They've got to sell this.
Right, and then they pushed it to December of 2015. Instead of May, they wanted to do May. But I think they do want to return to those summer premieres.
It's probably smarter that they moved it to December. There's a lot going on next year. Let it have its own little week of glory and not just overshadowed a week later by Batman and Superman or a week before by Avengers 2. And, there's a lot now. The marketplace, and nobody's backing down from each other anymore.
Now that we don't have regular Harry Potter films or Lord of the Ring films, December is an attractive place to put a big franchisee
but Christmas movies
type of film.
Like this is the kind of movie that it's a family film, an adventure, like a Harry Potter.
Right.
The Harry Potters that came out in December always succeeded. Right. James Bond started doing that. The Hunger Games did that in the second Hunger Games, and the third and the fourth are also going to be going down that road. Plus, Star Wars will be competing with one of the Hunger Games.
But that's the thing. It makes sense because since Disney owns everything now, Marvel and Lucasfilm, they don't want to compete against themselves in the summer because Marvel in the summer is going to go nuts.
Yeah, you're just cannibalizing your own stuff. So anyway, as far as episode 7 goes, it'll have a name, we figure, at least by the end of this year.
We immediately, for a while now, we've known that J.J. Abrams is directing. Pretty quickly, rumors floated around that they were trying to get the main cast. And so far, from the main cast that we know, we have Mark Hamill coming back as Luke Skywalker, Harrison Ford coming back as Han Solo, Carrie Fisher coming back as Princess Leia. Then you have your second-tier originals, your Peter Mayhews coming back as Chewbacca, Anthony Daniels coming back as C-3PO, Kenny Baker coming back as R2-D2.
And, there's a few other rumors. I don't know. Jeremy Bulloch every now gives a hint that he might be participating. Now, I don't think as Boba, but it certainly is a possibility, I guess. But
now, we don't know exactly what's going on with Billy D. Williams. We're going to talk about him a little bit later, but right now we're not sure. The only other person that kind of popped up there in terms of allegedly being approached was Dennis Lawson, who played Wedge. And apparently, if the quote is correct, he said something to the regards of he was approached, but he rejected the offer because it would bore him, which is a very unusual, disgruntly type of answer. That's more... I would imagine that's more something Harrison Ford would have said. But, okay, I guess we're not getting a Wedge this time around. But they did give us some newbies in the mix, which, again, the speculation is all over the place because we don't have names for these characters. All we have is the actors who are playing
Well, the one
them.
that stands out, let me just say, the people who stand out for me is Max von Sydow. That guy, he's a legend, okay? A lot of people don't realize all the stuff that he's been in and how much stuff that they probably love that he's been in. To me, if I had to guess, he's a character who will be a benevolent, loving, kind of older, wise character.
Like Ming the Merciless.
But in my mind, I feel he's a Palpatine type character, and I would bet you
He could
he's
turn on
either
you.
a Sith leader of some sort or a not so great guy, even though he initially might come across to us as a nice
him,
person.
Like you mentioned earlier, from Flash Gordon, he was Ming. They dressed him up as Ming. He was excellent. If those fans out there of the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd film, he was Judge Fargo, who was Dredd's mentor in the film. He was also, if you're into classic cinema, wasn't he on The Seventh Seal?
Yeah, that's his.
If you're in, a big film nerd, that's, but he's done. My God, he's The Exorcist. He was in The Exorcist, for Christ's sake. I mean, this is some heavy talent. This is the equivalent of your Peter Cushing. This is the equivalent of your Christopher Lee, and this is the equivalent of your Alec Guinness. Basically, this is the formula that Lucas used to have.
Yeah.
The big guns. He brings in the big guns,
and it's a smart move. It's a brilliant move. He's got a lot of. What's the word they use? He's
Gravitas.
Gravitas, yes. He's
we have Andy Serkis,
who we know he can do just about anything.
Well,
we've been impressed with him with Planet of the Apes,
right?
The Hobbit.
He's the
Lord
guy
of the
that
Rings.
does the mocap.
He's his own. Yeah, he's his own cinema. God.
Yeah, he does. And I'm assuming that they're bringing him in because they're going to want him to do some kind of motion capture character. But he has also acted. I know that. So it's possible he might show up also as a secondary character, with his own face. We don't know. But again, that's another interesting, name that we might recognize.
The next character I mentioned, I'm going to let you and John Travolta handle the name of this young lady. But she was the main actress in 12 Years a Slave. And the rumor mill has been going that she could play an Asajj Ventress.
Okay, her name is Lupita Nyong'o.
Yeah,
Nyong'o.
if you say so. I don't
hope
want to say it.
I'm sure I'm mispronouncing her name.
But she's beautiful. She's got a really close cropped hair. She looks like she's very athletic. I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing she could be trained in it if she's not. Fans have done concepts of her as Asajj, and that would be a nice little tie-in to the prequel era. But it just seems to me unlikely, even though I'd kind of like that, because she'd be too old.
Right.
She'd be older than Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. Even if she was an alien, she would be, much older of a character.
Possible. You're right. It could be that. Also, keep in mind that, and this isn't something that, you could kind of say Disney tries to be very diversified in their cast. They try to hit every single demographic in their product. I know that Lucas originally caught some flack initially because when Star Wars came out, there were no Black African-American characters. And by the time Empire came, it almost seemed like the Lando character was a response to that lack of diversity in the film. Now, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't trade Lando for anything.
No, I'd like to have
great.
him back, but I guess they can't have everybody.
I think eventually he'll make his way into these films. But her, again, because of the diversity issue, I don't think they might want to waste her under a ton of makeup.
Yeah, it's true.
I think they might want to present her the way she is. I saw 12 Years a Slave. Wow, it's an amazing film, but it's a rough film. It's one of these films I would compare it to like maybe Passion of the Christ,
or
where
Schindler's List. You don't feel good coming out of it. You're glad you saw this kind of art.
And you don't want to watch it again because you don't want to go through those emotions again because it's a very raw film.
Probably more like The Passion.
Yeah. And you can see obviously why she got an Oscar for it. There's no way that Oscar was just a sympathy or a token. No. Oh my God. It's like, wow. And yeah, again, you want to get those old actors that have a lot of experience on that, and you want to get these recent Academy Award winners. So I could see why they kind of angled her as a character. I mean, she was amazing in that film.
Now, we have to guess that some of these other people that have been, they're youngish. We have to assume that nobody said for sure, but basically it has to be the offspring of at least Han and Leia.
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of young actors in this
There's
group.
one particular who they have said is a bad guy.
Well, let me give you another one. And again, I'm going to butcher the name. Domhnall Gleeson. And he is a character, he's an Irish actor who was in the Harry Potter films. He was one of the Weasleys.
He played the older brother, Bill, who was more popular in the book,
He's
but
one of the
didn't make his
redheaded
appearance till later.
Weasley-looking kids. He's not one of the twins, but he's one of the
So
family.
are you alleging because he's redheadish that they're going to go with the Mara Jade type because wasn't she a redhead? Or
Ooh.
with Luke?
Well, that's another thing. We don't know if
Is
they're
Luke
going to...
a monk or did he...
Well, we don't know if they're going to go into the children of Luke and
Yeah.
Mara Jade. Maybe the children of Han
Because
and
they
Leia.
said none of the EU has to be gospel. They can do anything they want. They're going to, they were nice books. You enjoyed them. I hope you had a nice time reading them. But they don't feel they have to stay loyal to any of that subject matter.
The other young actress is Daisy Ridley, who, here we go. This is that young age that she could be somebody's daughter, important type of character. Who knows who she's playing?
Well, they need to generate some excitement for the young people. Right. They need to get like a new version of Jennifer Lawrence that gets people excited, or a young hot guy. Hayden Christensen never really did that, and Natalie Portman wasn't even that young anymore by the time she was in the second two prequels.
Well, another young actor in the mix is John Boyega, who some of you might remember him from the movie Attack the Block. It was a British sci-fi film. But most recently, I've been watching him on 24. He's an actor in 24, another African-American character, which, I think they're trying to diversify the cast a little more. He might be that other girls we talked about's boyfriend.
Lando's son, who was introduced in the Lego world.
Yeah, I don't know if they want to go that route. I don't think they're going to have everybody having kids.
Or was Bando like Lando's dad because Lando was young? I can't remember.
Like that. So yeah, he's another interesting, new, fresh actor. And remember, that was also part of the deal. You get actors who are new. You don't have to pay them the zillions and zillions of dollars that you have to pay.
Long three term.
Yeah.
Here's my guess. You might have Luke Skywalker in it a bit. You might have Carrie Fisher in it a bit. I think this is where Harrison Ford gets his wish for Han Solo to die. I feel like that's likely. He doesn't seem like he's on board for the long haul.
Right. There's a rumor going around that he only wants to do one.
That's why I'm saying that. He wants to get another Indiana Jones in somehow, which I don't see how that can happen if they're not prepared right now to do it. He's not a young man. And there have been rumors floating around of other actors taking over the role of Indy in like a reboot type situation. Wow. So,
well, you mentioned also possible baddies in this movie. There's a young actor named Adam Driver who, if you look at a picture of him and the previous work he's done, he's a great. He could be a potentially
got some dark
great
looks to it, dark hair, the typical bad guy. He
appeared in Steven Spielberg's Lincoln a few years ago, and most recently in Inside Llewyn Davis.
I don't know what that is.
Which was, I think, it was nominated for a couple of awards here or there. But I think he's also on that show Girls, that HBO show.
Yeah, that's where he's known from.
I think that's where they found him.
I don't know what his character is on that. If he's playing a bad guy role, because he always plays bad guys, but he did have a look that he could. I wasn't excited about when they announced him,
he's got scary eyes. He's got the seedy, I'm going to do something kind of look.
My guess is somehow one of the offspring turned bad if he's one of the solo children. They don't even have to go with the same names if they don't want to that have been established, which I never liked. Jaina and Jason or whatever. I don't even know where they came from. But they can change anything they want as far as that's concerned, but I have a vibe that it's going in that direction, which makes me a little worried that we've already been down that road in the comic books and in the EU books.
Another actor, Oscar Isaac, again, from Inside Lewis Davis, and 2 actors from the same movie. I guess those guys know each other. He apparently, from what I see here, he's from Guatemala. So, I think they're trying to diversify the cast. I think they're trying to give everybody, and again, I don't want to blame Disney because Lucas might have done that too, but they're trying to, give a little flavor of everything.
It's okay. It doesn't even matter. It's as long as the parts are well cast and, the people act. I just don't want them to start again like I felt with Rebels, sticking characters in to fit the bill,
Now, the last actress that was announced recently is Gwendoline Christie. Now, I know
that was in the last batch.
From the last batch. She's from Game of Thrones, who plays a very...
Is that the Khaleesi?
No. She's this very physical,
I never saw the show.
strong woman who's like a knight. She plays a very tomboyish type of character. And it's funny because when you look at a picture of her without the makeup, you couldn't recognize her. She's so different looking. And I'm assuming that's what they want from her. A very, very tough, physically threatening type of character. And she might even be a baddie too, for all we know.
So what we know then, past the casting, there was a big announcement with a big group photo of almost everybody.
Yeah, most of them were there for that photo.
You don't see everybody crystal clear. Some people have kind of their back to you, but they're sitting there, and it looks like it was done on purpose.
It's the director, it's Lawrence Kasdan's there, the producer, Burke is there.
So that's exciting. A lot of people got really tingly when that came out. A lot of people were passing it around on
We know John
Facebook.
Williams is doing the music from a while back. We already knew that.
We also know there'll be a lot more practicals rather than CGI, which I have no problem with CGI. I think it cleans it up. It probably makes it a little cheaper. But I think they're trying to avoid the problem they had with the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where so much started to feel like it was CGI stuff.
Even
just
the
stuck
prequels,
in.
a lot of people complained about the CGI look, which is funny because I've read a number of books that they talk about, and they insist that they shot a lot of models, and I've seen pictures of these models built, these sets of caves and worlds, but they did add CGI elements to it. But I think, in general, the impression people got was that it was all CGI.
Yeah, my problem
even though it wasn't.
Any problems I had, I've gone back and forth with the problems over the 15 years of episode 1 and on. Wow. It had nothing to do with the special effects. It was more to do with stilted dialogue, kind of poor acting, which it turns out sometimes that was what was required from the actors. They wanted that particular style. And so I think in this one, okay, fine. You want to go with models and stuff like that? Fine. Do whatever it takes. I'm okay with
Even
it.
Even Abrams
said
that. He said he would like to see a more organic, less CGI-y feel to it. And he wants to shoot it in 35 millimeters instead of digitally. And that's a way of kind of being polite and saying, we want to address that issue without really saying it.
So here's the situation now. We are getting weekly drips of pictures at this point. From about May on, we would get a weekly little bit of first press release, but then some leaks,
well, the
some
first
set
leak I remember
photos,
was the AT-AT foot in the desert.
There was an AT-AT style foot, allegedly. Then there was
in Abu Dhabi.
The set-looking pieces, and there were some characters and an environment.
There was even some building of Falcon pictures that sometimes they were like, well, wait, are these really authentic, or these could be back from the 70s?
But they released a
80s?
creature. It looks like it's a puppet creature.
It looks like a giant pig type of thing.
I think we'll get into that in another show, but you said that's not just some new character.
Well,
that's something that may have been around in the concepts.
The issue here is that I think similarly to Rebels, where they announced from the beginning that they were trying to go back to and use as much McQuarrie concept material as possible, I think Episode 7 is trying to do that too. I think a lot of the architecture we've seen in some of these leaked pictures...
It's keeping its pedigree, so fans can't say, oh, this is just Disney Star Wars. No, this is where we got it from. It came from this source material. George gave us the concept of the storyline.
There are pictures of buildings and these canopies that are directly lifted from McQuarrie pictures and drawings that I've seen. The ships are starting to look a little different. The Falcon being built looks like the Falcon.
That excited me.
Plus, we saw very early, it's not finished what we saw. It's just the cockpit here, this, there. But then we also saw an XWing, what looks like an XWing.
Both of us noticed it was based on the snub nose XWing.
The Joe Johnston
with
sketch.
the the engines being more one circle cut in half
Right.
on each wing, kind of like the old artwork, which is great. But
And the shorter
what
nose.
did you notice?
Yeah, what I noticed was that there were different angles of that picture, and it was kind of far away in what looked like a studio, a set. And no matter what angle the picture was taken from, whether it's way on the left or way on the right, the engines and the wing, you know,
So
the
it's
three dimension of the
probably a
wing,
2D,
right?
not a practical.
It never moved. It was always in the same place, which leads me to believe, that this might be a backdrop frame drawing, painting instead of an actual model. Granted, maybe they will build a model.
Yeah.
Maybe they put it there as a joke for us. Who knows? But there was something fishy about that picture.
But the Falcon part, the building of the Falcon, you can see there was like
yeah.
some side pieces.
It's life size. It's life size.
That gives me a lot of hope that it could wind up someday in a Disney park
And we also mentioned the fact
or
that
a museum. It should be in a museum.
because this takes place after Return of the Jedi, the Falcon might look different because there might be additional parts to it that we might recognize or additional features that we have not seen yet.
Like the All Good Things Enterprise D.
Who knows?
I don't want that.
It might have extra guns. Maybe the pontoons inflate and they can land on water.
Yeah, that kind
know.
of stuff. If it had that kind of stuff, that's okay. But if
And-
it suddenly now has a turbo engine coming off the back,
if you're interested in all this stuff, listen to our previous shows about the Falcon.
it
about
was a good one.
About all the different things that you could add to
and
the
it's
ship.
free, kids.
What else? Oh, those leaked pictures. Again, some of these leaked pictures we're talking about were all of Abu Dhabi. A lot of extras in costumes. Tatooine, obviously it's Tatooine. And it's a lot of people in, deserty type of costumes. Not a lot of creature masks we saw. More like locals, low-end.
Felt like Episode 1 Tatooine.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff.
I'm waiting to see Sebulba.
James did mention that giant pig. From what I've seen, again, of some indoor pictures of the pig being assembled, I'm not sure if it's going to have a lot of... I don't know. I'm not sure if it's an animatronic or if it's a standstill type of creature.
Pneumatics, maybe.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe it has parts that move. I don't know. But it looks great in terms of... Talk about organic. It's there.
And
it's
you
disgusting.
say it does have origin in the
Yeah,
original trilogy.
Again, this is just my theory because I grabbed something and I obsess over it. There's a painting of the Tusken Raiders with the bantha that McQuarrie drew originally for the first film. If you take a look at that painting very closely, you'll notice that the banthas don't have the face that the banthas we ended up with have. You can actually see their face instead of being all covered with hair. The face looks very piggish, like a snout and a pig kind of face to those creatures. However, when the movie was shot, they changed it to a very hairy-looking thing where you don't see the face. I guess part of the problem was that they couldn't animate that face because if they're going to mount it on an elephant, you can't really add more gear to this poor elephant to make his face move when it's not his real face. However, that piggish-looking animal or creature did eventually end up in Star Wars, the original film, as something called a gerba. And the gerba, if you look it up, again, we're talking deep. These are deep cuts, people. Deep, deep cuts. This is where your family looks at you and goes, we got to get this guy help. The gerba was supposed to be like some kind of a hairy cow. It was built. It was used in the film as an extra back prop. It's at the entrance to the cantina. It's a very cow-sized animal, all hairy.
Now, these aren't the kind of cow-looking character that was in episode 2.
You mean like the Opies?
No, that's a different one. That's the ride-on one. They had these cow-looking things when they were picnicking.
Oh,
out
those
in
big
the
potato-y
meadow.
things, those Mr. Potato Heads. Yeah, those were weird. No. These are
Like somebody stuck a air gun in there.
Yeah, those were kind of creepy. No, I'm talking about this thing that it's like a cow. It's got 4 legs. You could ride on them if you want.
Hey, I like creatures, so that's cool.
But
that
it was all
use
hairy.
it.
It's almost like a miniature bantha because I guess it all came from the same thing. Yeah. But the face was a combination of a pig and a cow, if you will. And like I said before, it's on the entrance of the cantina with its back to you.
And where else is it?
Well, because they couldn't animate it, they weren't going to bother showing you the face. So it's back there. I've seen pictures of some promotional events that Carrie Fisher and the cast went to in London, I believe, where she's actually sitting, taking a picture on top of it, like writing it. And there's a picture of George Lucas with his ex-wife, Marcia, next to it also in black and white, next to the face of this gigantic, disgusting-looking cow
So
thing.
he's an original trilogy.
But by the time they
cast member.
shot it, they realized this thing is kind of ugly. It can't move. It doesn't do a thing. Get rid of it. But ironically, it works its way back to Return of the Jedi, believe it or not, because there's a scene in Jedi at Jabba's palace where Han Solo is frozen in carbonite on the wall and Jabba's displaying him for everyone. You probably missed it when you saw it in the theater.
Yeah, I
you
did.
Probably
I learned
missed it.
more things about Jedi this year than I
You
have.
definitely missed it when you saw it on video because there was no widescreen back then. At either end of the block, the carbonite block, there's a Tauntaun head, trophy head, and the Jerba trophy head.
Wow.
And we finally got pictures of these that we got to see them when the Blu-ray was released. And now it's nice and sharp and clean, and you can actually like take a clean still of it and look at it. So I guess they must have recycled those old props and stuck them on the wall as trophies. And I've been obsessing over this stupid animal for years now. And
You want your own.
In a way, I have a feeling, again, personal theory, that they're kind of not taking the exact prop, but they're taking inspiration from that original design and bringing it back to an appropriate place, Tatooine, because that's where that thing came from.
All right, so now let's get to what we really want to talk about.
Talk about tangent, ladies and gentlemen. There's your tangent right there.
So now let's talk about what we really have wanted to know since the announcement of an episode 7. What are Luke, Han, and Leia going to look like? Now,
Oh, yeah.
I had not high hopes, and I was worried because I had seen Mark Hamill taking cigarettes and garbage out of a trash can on the street. God bless Carrie Fisher. She's probably one of the most talented and funny ladies out there right now. And Harrison Ford, who has aged about 30 years in the past 5 years.
And to quote Harrison Ford, whatever.
So what are we going to expect? Well, we figured, you've said to me, well, you're going to see Mark Hamill sometime eventually with a beard, and then you'll know. Well, sure enough.
But hold on. The reason we say that, and again, this goes back to yet another tangent. Years ago, 83, 84 maybe, Mark Hamill gave a series of interviews. One of them, I think, was for Entertainment Tonight, back when Entertainment Tonight actually was about
When
entertainment.
it was with Mary Hart.
And Mary Hart. And not even Rod Weller, the guy before Rod Weller that looked like Pat Sajak, whatever his name was. I don't even remember. But anyway, he gave an interview saying that, you know, he was done with the Return of the Jedi. It's over. We're done. And the people are like, well, when are you going to make more movies? Well, George originally wanted to make 9 films. And he told me, you know what, Mark, hang out. When you're like Alec Guinness's age, you'll come back, you know, old, and you can replay your character as an older character.
And sure enough, we saw a picture from a Disney event with Mickey Mouse of Mark Hamill holding a lightsaber, and
he was
Mickey
participating in
and
the-
Jedi Mickey holding
This is Star
a
Wars
light-
weekends on Disney.
And he's got at least a 2-week beard, it
He's
looks
growing
like.
the beard. And he confirmed it.
Yeah. So we pretty much know that'll be an older bearded Luke, which I guess that's fine. You know, he's not a young man anymore. It gives him more character.
And we all speculated.
and
He's
Jedis tend
he's-
to have beards.
Right. He's reconstituting the Jedi Order. He's rebuilding the Jedi Order. That's our guess, maybe, probably, possibly.
I've seen Carrie Fisher on a British show recently, a couple other places. She looks like Carrie Fisher.
Did she say anything interesting, or she's just all over the place?
You know, she's always a little salty and a little sarcastic and making fun of, you know, in a funny way, making fun of the whole franchise and things like that, and the people who ask her questions. So, you know, she looks older. She's older Carrie Fisher, clearly, because she's 30 years older. But, you know, she looks like she's lost some weight. You don't like to talk about that kind of stuff.
But she's
it shouldn't
got to
be a factor.
look. She's got to
But
look 30 years older.
She looks more matronly and more of like an elder leader, like some of the senators and Congress ladies that we have.
I'm sure she's not going to be cracking jokes like the Carrie Fisher character that she is now. Yeah. She's going to act like a character that she will be handed.
Probably more of a Hillary Clinton-esque kind of leader.
Right, a governmental type of, you know. Peter Mayhew, it's funny because recently he had knee surgery. I think both his knees had to be replaced or something. So I know that he was trying to get his strength back and trying to get back into mobility.
Well, he'll be there.
And if he's playing Chewbacca, I imagine he might be either maybe doing a lot of the obviously.
They're not going to do it without him in the costume,
right? And it'll be a lot
That's
of.
a JJ.
I imagine
thing.
a lot of.
If they're going to do non-CGI, they're not going to have some other guy put the Chewie.
And if there's
on.
scenes where he has to run, maybe they'll use a stuntman. But obviously, anytime Chewbacca talks and nods and makes his Chewbacca gestures, it's most likely.
Is it gospel Peter Mayhew wore the costume in Episode 3? Because I know they brought him back for his voice and for his wisdom about the character in Clone Wars cartoon.
Clone Wars. No, I think he...
Did he participate in Episode 3, or was he just around so he would...
I'm pretty sure he did.
Okay. Last but not least...
Well, hold on. Before we get to him, Kenny Baker.
Oh, how he said he hated...
And Anthony Daniels.
He hated Anthony Daniels.
Well, Anthony Daniels, obviously, the man, he'll go to this grave playing C-3PO because he always is in shape for it. He always does it. He's never fallen out of that character,
And
he can pull it off.
It kind of goes with the fact that George Lucas said the droids were always going to be there. The story is
Clone
coming
Wars.
from them.
He was all through Clone Wars.
And that's great.
Right. Kenny Baker, on the other hand, you got to keep in mind that originally when he was hired, they were expecting him to do a lot more of the internal movements of R2, but because of all the technical issues, a lot of times they ended up saying, all right, forget it. Let's just pull him with a wire. Let's do this, let's do that. But there are a lot of scenes where if R2 has to shake or rattle or do something, it is Kenny Baker. But Kenny Baker really didn't do a lot of R2 work. He did a lot of Ewoks. He played Ewoks and stuff like that. Anytime they needed little people, I'm sure he was able to portray those characters. But with R2, especially now with all the CGI R2 stuff that they can do, I don't know how much you want to put,
People
especially
are making
somebody
their own R2s at home now.
Right, all electrical.
Legos even that are fully functional.
Plus,
and
he's older. He's an older guy. You want to put an older guy into such a small, cramped space and have him physically, do a lot of work. Again, I don't know how much of Kenny Baker will be in R2. He wasn't part of that photos session. He wasn't there for that.
But he also said recently how much he hated Anthony Daniels.
Well, those two never got along.
And I didn't even know that.
Oh, it's legendary.
I didn't think they were hanging out having tea and crumpets, but I really was surprised how much he disliked that, almost a Takei Shatner type of relationship.
Yes. and the worst part is that these two characters are so together
They're
all
the
the
heart
time.
of Star Wars, the best friends of Star Wars.
They can't stand each other. They're kind of more like the New Hope, them landing in Tatooine. Apparently that's what it's like with them.
It's more like that. So finally, let's talk about Harrison Ford. Now, of the three main... of the three main stars, he still looks most like his character, but not really. Harrison Ford really has aged, I think, a lot. Now he's not a young man. He's 70.
No, but again...
So it's fine. I understand it. But it just seems like he's in it and he's involved, but he still comes across like he doesn't care. And I don't know if that's just a bad perception that is coming off, because we really haven't heard him say much.
I think it's part of his character. Part of his character, Harrison Ford character, is that he doesn't care about anything, especially Star Wars. He might have a little bit of good feeling towards Indiana Jones, but especially Star Wars. Now, granted, he's biting his lip.
I think they promised him a big death.
Yes.
And he's coming back for it. Plus,
And
he's
Indy.
got kids with Callista, at least one that I know of for sure, that might be into this. And he can say, see, I really was Han Solo because this child was born, just a few years ago.
Right. Now, the other thing is that out of the original cast, I think he's still probably the best actor of all of them. Yeah. And I don't think we're going to see him kind of walking through this movie I think you'll see him acting.
He did a good job in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. He'll play the part, especially if it's the end of Han Solo. This might even bookend his career if they never get another Indiana Jones.
Let's hope it's not, but whatever. What are you going to do? Now, we mentioned before, missing from this list is Billy D. Williams, which I hope...
Well, Billy D. is 80. There may or may not be a place for him, and you said he might turn up eventually.
Well, he's already confirmed for Rebels.
That's probably more like it. He's not in good shape, and it's kind of like the same situation as the Doctor Who 50th anniversary. You can't get everybody in because they just don't look that good anymore, and it wouldn't be appropriate. Why do they look like that? Or do you recast them and have him do the voice or something?
My personal belief is that there's a 99% chance he's going to show up later. Kind of like Empire, halfway through maybe, or at the end, but he will be in this movie, unless he is showing up in this movie and they're keeping it quiet because they want to surprise us.
They don't have to announce they had to announce the main cast because people are going to show up on call sheets and stuff like that, and the main actors are going to be seen showing up in England, so they have to...
What about Palpatine? What about Ian McDermott? Maybe he'll show up as a cameo.
I did hear a rumor or something. Somebody interviewed him at a recent convention or show or something. And
maybe they will clone the Emperor.
He didn't feel that. It's funny you say that because I wanted to say it and then I dropped it, but now I'm going to say it. I think they're going to avoid the whole clone concept at the moment.
Cliffhanger for one film to the other. One of those little tricky things.
No, this one's going to be more self-contained and end on the sad note of Han Solo. There'll be a small victory, a sad loss, and then there'll be the bread and butter in the next two. But the last person we have is George Lucas. Poor George was in New York trying to have a nice day. He's recently had a new baby. He's married now. And
who could recognize him? The only guy wearing flannel with a white beard that looks like Santa Claus.
In Midtown Manhattan.
Who could that be?
So TMZ, which is either the greatest organization ever or the bane of our modern existence.
The decline of Western civilization all in one show.
They catch up with George Lucas for some sage information on how he feels about his creation.
Hey, George, how's it going with the movie? Hey, how's it going? And George replies, I'm retired. And gets into a car and gets whisked away while the interviewer is still screaming questions.
Care less. He sold it. He's $4 billion richer. He's got a new wife and child. He's loving life in his. He's just turned 70 this year.
He's trying to open an art museum in Chicago apparently now because they wouldn't let him have it in the Presidio. I was telling you earlier what George should do from now on: carry business cards. And the business cards, anybody says anything resembling Star Wars, the business card would say, "Ask J.J. Abrams," and print his personal number there so people can hound JJ and leave George alone.
Like kind of like Steve Martin does, but JJ will be getting calls every 3 days. He'll have to change his number.
He'll be walking around with 10 cell phones because he'll just keep dropping them like the spy movies where they crack the phone in half and throw it in the garbage and move on to the next burner. They call them burners. Give me a burner, quick.
So anyway, we've really barely touched on it. There's tons of stuff out there. There's people who the next several years their job will be to scour every Star Wars related type of thing to get a hint.
Well, think about this, James. Think about this, because we are toy collectors and we are obsessive toy collectors. Right now, somewhere in Hasbro's bunker, just like your bunker, in Hasbro's bunker, there are people with drawings and pictures and designs and sculpts.
Creating art.
This stuff, remember, if the movie comes out next year, they should have been
in the works.
These things have to be almost done already.
So Hasbro originally expected this movie to be out next May. We're talking in the summerish of 2014. There has to be some sort of tease of product for Toy Fair, which is February 2015, for a movie coming out in December-ish 2015.
February. I would say this year's Comic-Con would have been the beginning of the
even though this
previews.
is a Star Wars movie, like I said earlier, they have to sell this movie. And what I mean by that, the way the business works, a quick version of it is you've got to convince people why this is important in their life way ahead of time. Marvel now and Avengers, they've planted that seed, and that's why every other movie is a big movie and then a filler type movie of an individual character, and then an Avengers 2, and then another character.
Toy lines have to be done at least a year ahead.
That's why what Star Wars is doing, what Disney is doing with their version of Star Wars is they'll relaunch it with Rebels. They'll get Episode 7 out, which will be this tentpole. Then they'll have these little movies, another tentpole down the line. This could go on forever, but it's the new way of making a movie. You've got to have people thinking about it all the time. There may be a television show. There may be a new comic that we heard them talking about. There's a toy line. It's back. It's a business. And every theme park will be having branding.
At one point, I remember there was something, some document. I don't know if it was a Hasbro document or some kind of document saying something about a Darth Vader special. Whether it was a television thing or something like that. That's going to pop up again at some point.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
And
now,
recently,
keep in
James
mind,
Earl Jones was asked if he's going to participate, and he said, no, I'm done. Now, of course, that might be, a lie as well. He doesn't know he'll be participating because they're going to come to him with a nice check and say, please, sir, would you record some of this? Or maybe there's enough archival stuff, or maybe they're able to find somebody who is close enough, which is kind of what they do now. They kind of find some people who mimic
the sound-alikes. Yeah, they do that. There's a whole industry of people
and
that
good.
just basically
they're
do
not,
it.
They're not hacks. They're good.
Right. Well, the Clone War people, most of those actors are not the original actors, obviously.
And
they
in fact,
sound great.
they have more personality and better actors, and they deserve more credit for what they did with Clone Wars because the acting wasn't so fantastic in the prequels.
Rebels we're going to see, I believe, in October. And it's going to.
I think there's some teasers beforehand. They said, "Do you think they might do what they did with Clone Wars?"
Well, here's the thing. At one point, some people were saying we're going to see something in August, but then again, I saw this poster from a toy show, a Disney-related toy show, where in the bottom it says, "And watch our premiere in October."
Okay.
So like I said, maybe we'll get a preview, but officially,
I just feel like there'll be something to generate buzz, whether it's on purpose or pseudo-accidental, kind of like what they did with Tron. They released the first episode of the Tron cartoon on YouTube to try to get people to generate some talk on social media.
I believe the first
and stuff.
episode of Rebels will be similar to the Clone Wars movie. It'll be a combination of episodes edited together into a hour or hour and a half presentation.
Are they going to try to stay in order, or are we going to be watching episodes that happened in the third season after the first movie?
We'll find out. I think they will because I think they did catch some flack, which, you know what, who cares?
Yeah.
But to make it nice, I think they're going to go in that direction.
Okay.
So like we said earlier, guarantee In the next few days, we're going to get something new, and we're going to most likely add it at the end of this show because the train has left the station and it's going to stop at every stop from here all the way to December 18th.
It's not an
of
express.
2015.
It's a long local.
And between the leaks, the stuff they put out on purpose, we're going to get a boatload of information, not only about the filmmaking process, but the toys. We're going to get more stuff. And it's just a matter of catching it and regurgitating it as fast as possible, right?
There may be 12 of these shows between now and the movie of the state of Star Wars.
We might have to start a new podcast just about Star Wars. Oh, no, I don't have time.
We'll try not to bore you.
Well, just as we warned you earlier in the show, the minute we turn off our recorders, breaking news. No pun intended, but Harrison Ford broke his ankle during the shooting of Episode 7. Something happened having to do with some kind of door mechanism, came down crashing on his foot, broke his ankle. He is apparently out of commission for about 8 weeks. Ironically now, we have both Han Solo and Chewbacca recovering from some ankle/knee related trauma. Both these iconic sci-fi characters, on the mend at the same time. Sooner or later, you're going to see pictures of both these guys doing physical therapy or something, recovering from their injuries. We've read that they are going to shoot around him, do some other shooting in the meantime. They have contingencies for these sort of things, but it's going to put a little bit of a snag on the shooting schedule. Now, there's plenty of rumors floating around, and I don't want to get too deep into them because these things keep changing all the time. People are wondering when the Simon Pegg is going to have a role. There's all kinds of things having to do with who the new bad guy is. Are we dealing with the Jedi Order? Are we dealing with Luke training them? Are we dealing with the Inquisitor from Rebels or something like that being the lead bad guy in this film? Jedi hunters that are actually hunting down Jedi, and even the possibility of, as we mentioned earlier, resurrecting the Sith Order, cloning or that kind of stuff. Who knows? It's just rumors at this point. We don't know. As soon as we have confirmation, that's the type of information that we're going to try to, provide you with. You want rumors? Go to the internet. There's a zillion of them. But we do know for a fact that in future films, and specifically what I'm talking about here is the spin-offs, 2 directors have been signed on to direct. The first one is Gareth Edwards, which we mentioned in an earlier episode. He has recently had success with Godzilla, the reboot of Godzilla, and his previous film Monsters. And Josh Trank, who you might remember from the movie Chronicles. And currently he's working, I think, on the new Fantastic Four film. So those 2 guys are confirmed as the next 2 directors for the spin-offs. Not for episode 8 and 9, but for spin-off number 1 and spin-off number 2. All right, well, on behalf of James and myself from the lobby of the bunker, we'd like to thank you guys for joining us today, and we will see you here next time at GeekFest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
To ignite a rebellion, all it takes is a single spark. This fall, the saga continues on Disney XD. Star Wars Rebels this fall on Disney XD.
Oh dear. Shoo shoo, ghastly beast.
This is where your family looks at you and goes, we got to get this guy help.